I wanted to dream journal a little bit more, and I was going to talk about a couple dreams I had this week. The first one was about my uncle. His name was Eli. He was an Army Ranger during Vietnam, and he would have been part of the Green Berets, what would become known as the Green Berets, because they were kind of developed in Vietnam, and he spent a lot of time behind enemy lines. And like the movie Rambo, it broke him. He just was never really the same. The combat traumatized him so much that he couldn't really exist in life. He became homeless, and he died in Pensacola, Florida, probably like maybe 2005. In the dream, though, we discover that he has a house, my family and I don't really get along well with my dad. It's really complicated. Lots of abuse and things. I mean, I don't dislike my dad, but we can't, I don't know, there's some tension between us. And that's been ongoing in real life. So anyway, I'm with my dad, and I run into him at Eli's house, and we still have that tension, and so we're kind of talking to each other, but kind of civil, but not so much. There's a lot of tension between us. We're going through Eli's house. The strange thing is that this is a small house, like a cottage-type home in a poor neighborhood with lots of land, and no one's touched it. The government won't touch it. The neighbors won't touch it. And so it's like intact, as if it's from the 70s, which is really, really strange. Maybe the 80s, I guess. So we're going through the house, and there are all sorts of neat things. It's a 2-bedroom house. It's a single story. And the land around it, the grass has not been mowed, but it never grew to where it needed to be mowed, which is strange. The bushes never got to the point where they needed to be pruned, which is strange. It's like they stayed perpetually, like they're almost trapped in time. And when we go visit the house, it's like in modern times. And so we're going through the house, and we're looking through things. And my uncle Eli was also very proficient in martial arts, like really talented. And I'm finding all sorts of books. I'm finding all sorts of like antique Chinese weapons and things that are really interesting to me. And I start thinking that this is really strange. Like, why am I finding all these things in this house? And my dad's going through, and it's the same experience for him. He's finding all this stuff that Eli would have had, that he would have wanted, or he would have been interested in. Like, he finds a camera, he finds some other stuff, and it starts to creep me out. It starts to creep me out, like how much things that we're finding, that it's like almost stuff that we want to find, things that we wish we knew, that we wish were true about Eli. And it starts to bother me. And then when that thought comes to my mind, I actually find a hidden door, or a hidden like lever, and it has like a back room where there was like this ritual that was done, obviously, and that totally creeps me out. And it starts to remind me right away of Clive Barker's Hellbound Heart. And I'm totally creeped out. And I had packed all sorts of stuff in my car. Like, I like the Smurfs, so there were Smurf records, there were Star Wars figures, of course, Kung Fu stuff. And I just start putting it all back. And my dad has like a U-Haul, and he's like, no, I need to take this. And I was like, Pop, there's something wrong. You need to leave this stuff. He's like, no, I have to take it. You know, he left us unexpectedly. This is the very least that we can have something to remember him by. Well, anyway, I go back to the back room as I'm putting things back, and I see that it's a ritual, and that Eli was actually caught by some sort of like torturous interdimensional being, and that the house itself is a trap, and that only by someone taking a bunch of stuff and getting away with it, like kind of fleeing the scene of the crime with it, can they basically they'll swap places with Eli. And they'll actually go into the tortured state, and then Eli will be free. Now, I love my uncle, but not enough to actually suffer potentially eternal torment for him. I try to explain this to my father, and he's still reliving the beef between us. He's still like gaslighting me about stuff, saying I'm the cause of all his problems and all that. And finally, I just give up. I'm like, fine, you know what? Forget this. You take the stuff, and then you deal with the consequences. And he smugly grabs something out of my hand that I was putting back and takes it, and he shoves me and he says, I will. And just so you know, you're ungrateful and you need to change. And I kind of giggle. I kind of laugh, and I say, okay, take the stuff, Pop. We'll see ya, or maybe we won't. And then I walk away. But yeah, a weird dream about family and dysfunction, and then a family member being trapped in an interdimensional space like Hellraiser.